I could have handled being fired, downsized, burned out, even ignored. But when a man whose name is plastered on every press release turns my life into a hostage situation every Christmas, lying about deadlines just to bask in the glow of his own fake urgency, something breaks. Not just trust, something colder, something that knots itself into a vein and pulses with revenge. Tonight, he stripped me of my last scrap of dignity and called it business. Told me, family can wait. Oh, right, you don't have one. But he got one thing wrong. I'm still a person. And I remembered every word, every pause, every arrogant slur in his voice. At 21:47, I hit record. And for the first time in a year, I allowed myself to want one thing: revenge. My laptop was open, Slack still pinging like a failing heart monitor. The cursor blinked on the draft page of a client microsite I'd already finished 2 weeks ago, before the holidays, before the lies. Aspen's voice crackled through my AirPods again. "Open the laptop and shut up. You're expendable." He sounded drunk. Rooftop wind in the background, muffled laughter, a clink of glass. Manhattan exec party energy. The kind of scene you only get invited to when your job title starts with a C. The worst part? He wasn't even pretending to be polite this time. "Client wanted it tonight," he said. "Holiday push. I need that new CTA button live by midnight. Christmas theme. Something festive. Hell, I don't care. Just do it." I toggled to the client thread. No request. Their last message, time-stamped 2 days ago, read, "Let's revisit everything in January. Happy holidays to your team." Aspen was lying. Again. Using the client's name to justify one more last-minute scramble that would let him look like the hero who saved the launch, while we broke ourselves in silence. Another ping. Mia. "Be a good ghost," she joked in DMs. "Repaint the button and haunt later." Her sarcasm used to make me laugh. Tonight it just felt heavy. Then came the real message. My phone buzzed from under a pile of fabric swatches. Hospice light coordinator. "Kids are waiting. Are you close?" Shit. I froze. Because I'd promised. A week ago, I'd volunteered to run a short film at the children's hospice, an animated piece I storyboarded myself after a sleepless weekend. The kids couldn't go home for Christmas, so we were bringing a little magic to them. My shift was 9:30. It was already 9:47. I looked at the laptop again, then at the fairy lights above my window, only half of them working, same as last year, same as me. I clicked the mic icon in QuickTime. 21:47. Aspen Teller, VP of Brand Strategy, demanded holiday labor under false pretenses. Repeating, "Client did not request urgent delivery. Evidence logged, file tagged." Then I shut the lid. The city outside was buried in snow. I slipped my hard drive into my backpack and pulled on my coat with shaking hands. Aspen's voice still echoed in my head. "You're expendable." He loved that line. 20 minutes later, I was at the hospice, breath clouding, shoes soaked. The nurse on duty gave me a sharp look, half anger, half relief. I mumbled an apology, wheeled in the projector cart, and dimmed the lights in the kids' room. They stared wide-eyed at the screen as the opening scene played, a snowflake drifting down, looking for the perfect place to land. One girl, no older than 7, clapped when the first colors bloomed. A boy with oxygen tubes chuckled when the snowflake met a talking squirrel. And for 20 minutes, everything else faded. Then I felt a presence beside me. She wore jeans, a tailored coat, and a visitor's badge. She held a paper cup of tea like it was the only thing anchoring her to earth. "Did you make this?" she asked, her voice low. "Yeah," I said without turning. "My daughter's in the back. She hasn't smiled in days." Her voice broke slightly, then steadied. "I'm the CMO at Lantera." I turned. Lantera. The same client Aspen claimed needed the holiday update. My jaw clenched. "We told your agency we weren't doing any new pushes till January," she added, eyes narrowing. "I know," I said, "but my boss said you demanded it tonight. Used your name. Made it urgent." Her grip tightened on the paper cup. "What's his name?" "Aspen Teller." She stared at the kids, then whispered, "Unbelievable." She pulled out her phone. "I need to call my CEO." I nodded once. She stepped into the hall. I saved the file to 2 backup drives. I labeled them Neon Crunch. Tomorrow I'd play it all back. But tonight? Tonight I gave a room full of terminal kids 20 minutes of peace and stole the last lie Aspen would ever tell using my name. The Slack ping came before I even got home. Aspen again. His avatar, a stock photo smirk and empty eyes, lit up my screen like a neon threat. "Clock's still ticking," he wrote. "Client wanted it tonight. Do it or I end your career." I was standing in the lobby of my apartment building, snow still melting in the folds of my sleeves, when I read it. The audacity was clinical. Not a trace of irony, not a blink of hesitation. Just pure, weaponized entitlement. He was doubling down, pushing harder, convinced I'd bend like always. He didn't know what I knew. Not yet. I went upstairs in silence. My apartment greeted me with stillness, the kind that feels more like vacuum than peace. I peeled off my coat, boots, socks, and sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor like a soldier removing gear after a failed mission. I reopened Slack. My cursor hovered over his name. "Client never asked for a thing," I typed. "You lied. Again." Then I deleted the message. Not because it wasn't true, but because I didn't need a confrontation. I needed evidence, control, precision. Instead, I clicked through the project thread. The timestamps were pristine. The client's sign-off on Deck 18. "Happy holidays. Let's reconnect in the new year." No request. No urgency. No festive CTA. Just Aspen, inventing a crisis out of thin air, pressing down with his full weight on the one person he knew had no defense system left. Another ping. Mia again. "He just messaged me too," she wrote. "Says if we don't ghost shift this before morning, the client's pulling the contract." Ghost shift. I stared at the phrase, reading it like a slur. We'd all said it before. The quiet shame of late-night unpaid edits, done not because anyone needed them, but because someone wanted to look like they cared more. The kind of thing you did when you had student debt and no health insurance. When you were afraid silence would be interpreted as permission to fire. The only ghost I wanted to be now was the kind that haunts. My phone buzzed again. Not Slack. A text. Different tone. Real life. Hospice coordinator. "The kids loved it. Thank you. One more shift tomorrow at noon if you can. But no pressure. They asked for you by name." I closed my eyes. This was the split. Aspen was demanding I ghost for him. Smear some red and green on a landing page so he could post a smug holiday hustle thread while getting drunk on overpriced bourbon. Meanwhile, real kids, real lives, real grief waited in a cold ward across the city. I opened my laptop and screen recorded everything. The Slack thread, the project logs, the calendar invite Aspen had created and backdated. I clicked his voice message again, capturing it with clear audio. "Shut up and open your laptop. You're expendable." The cruelty was casual, practiced, like he'd said it before, probably had. I renamed the file, Aspen Liability ad auzutu.wav. I should have felt triumphant, righteous something, but instead I just felt tired. I shut the laptop again and stared at the Christmas lights still dangling limply in the window. One blinked. The rest didn't. Half lit. Half dead. Like everything else this year. Then my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. Hey, it's Jess. From Lantera. I'm the CMO. Can we talk? I stared at the screen. The warmth from the hospice flickered back in my memory. The kids, the film, the way she stood beside me like we were both watching the last decent thing left in the world. I texted back. Of course. She replied instantly. I'm sending you my number. I want to know exactly what Aspen told your team. I want receipts. I smiled. For real this time. 1 minute later, her phone rang. I answered. Jess? I asked. Yes, she said, voice low but sharp. I just got off the phone with our CEO. He's livid. I told him what you said about Aspen, about the fake rush, about how you were at a hospice when you were supposed to be making festive buttons. I have recordings, I said. She didn't even pause. Send them to me. I will. I'm collecting everything. I want it clean. You'll get it clean, she said. But you need to understand. This isn't just a lie. It's a liability. He forged urgency and used our brand to push unpaid labor. That's PR poison. I know, I said. And he's been doing it for months. This is just the first time I caught him while the snow was still falling. Jess was silent for a beat. Then, we want out. But cleanly, quietly. That means you need to stay quiet for 48 hours. Can you do that? Absolutely. Send me the audio and everything else you've got. I'll take care of the rest. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I'll send it tonight. And thank you, she added. Not just for this. For the film. My daughter smiled for the first time in days. That's not a small thing. I wanted to say something profound. I didn't. Just, you're welcome. We hung up. I turned off the lights in my apartment. The city outside was black and soft, snow glowing in halos under the street lamps. I sat in the dark, hands on the keyboard, watching the Slack icon blink again. But I didn't open it. I didn't need to be a good ghost anymore. I had become something better. I had become a record. The morning hit different. No pings, no meetings, no guilt-soaked expectations. Just snow. Real, uncurated snow, gathering at the edges of my window like it belonged there. I brewed coffee without checking my inbox, sat in silence while it steeped. The kind of silence I used to be afraid of, back when I thought urgent actually meant something. By 11:30, I was back at Hospice Light. My laptop slung over one shoulder, the film drive in my coat pocket like a secret worth protecting. The same nurse from the night before greeted me, this time with something dangerously close to a smile. They asked for you, she said. One of them made a paper snowflake and wrote your name in glitter glue. Don't make it weird. I didn't. Just nodded and followed her down the corridor. The lounge was dim, sunlight filtering through thick curtains and gauze. The kids were quieter today, more tired, but still alert, still present. There were new faces too, parents mostly. One stood out instantly. She was in a navy sweater and black jeans, hair pulled back like she was trying to pretend she hadn't cried recently. Her eyes locked on mine the second I stepped into the room. Jess, the CMO. She was here not as a client, not as an executive, but as a mom, and she recognized me instantly. You came back, she said softly. I said I would. She nodded. My daughter's in the corner. She barely slept, but she talked about the snowflake, said it reminded her that falling doesn't always mean breaking. I swallowed hard. That line wasn't in the script. She made it up, Jess said. I'm stealing it for our next campaign. We both smiled, tired, honest. I set up the projector again. This time, no rush, no guilt. I even added an extra scene I'd finished at 3 a.m., a thank you note from the snowflake, drifting into a child's window whispering, "You were never alone." When the film ended, no one clapped. Not because they didn't like it, but because clapping felt too loud, too alive. A few kids just leaned back against their pillows, eyes open, not blinking, like they were still in the dream. Jess leaned over. "I need to tell you something." I turned. "I showed your recording to our CEO last night. The audio file, the Slack thread, the forged invite. He didn't just listen, he took notes. Then he said, 'Find me a lawyer and find me a new agency.'" I blinked. "We're terminating the contract with your agency," she said, "effective immediately. And here's the kicker. We're transferring the project to another team on one condition." "Which is?" "That you lead it." I stared at her. "I'm not even senior. I'm barely salaried. You're the only one who showed up for something that wasn't about ego or exposure. You made joy, not content." I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "Okay." Jess handed me a flash drive. "It's the full termination file. MSA, deliverables, legal review. We'll handle the blowback. But you need to be ready. Your boss is going to lose his mind." I exhaled slowly. "He already is." She raised an eyebrow. "Then let's make sure he loses more than that." I tucked the flash drive into my bag and turned toward the kids. One girl waved at me with a tiny mittened hand. I waved back. On the way out, I passed a janitor in the hall scrubbing scuff marks off the floor. His radio played an old Sinatra song, tinny and sweet. "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." I stood there for a second, listening. Then my phone buzzed. Voicemail, Aspen. I didn't listen to it, just saved it. Labeled it 2147 continued, WAV. The snow outside was heavier now, clean, thick, forgiving. I walked home with my hood down, the flash drive pressing against my hip like a loaded weapon. There was one last message waiting for me when I got in, from Jess. A single sentence. "Send me the full Slack export, including the line where he says to drag her out of a hospital. Legal needs it tonight." And that was the moment it all clicked. This wasn't just retaliation. This was the opening move. Jess didn't wait. The call came in at 3:14 p.m. sharp. Direct line. My hands were still shaking from hitting send on the exported Slack thread, my cursor still hovering over the last highlighted message. "Just keep pressing. Christmas isn't a reason. Drag her out of her hospital if you must." Aspen's voice, transcribed in raw cruelty. "Tell me you sent it," Jess said without preamble. "I sent it." "Good. I'm walking into the CEO's office now." And then she hung up. I sat frozen, palms sweaty against the wood of my desk. The air in my apartment felt thick, charged. Not fear, not pride. Something between adrenaline and aftermath. The kind of breath you take after a car nearly clips you in the crosswalk, but doesn't. That moment of "I'm still here," wrapped in the thinnest paper of shock. 5 minutes later, my email pinged. Subject: urgent. Timestamp: request from Jess N. to me, legalalanteragroup.com. Please provide original audio timestamps, recording logs, and calendar metadata. Council needs originals. We're preparing formal notice. I sent the files. Attached every scrap, the audio clip from 2147, the screen recording of Aspen's rant, the forged calendar invite, and the exact metadata from our Slack export. No edits, no redactions, just the truth, raw and unpolished. At 4:02 p.m., Jess called back. "He's in shock," she said. "Who? Your CEO?" "No, Aspen." My heart kicked. "We conference called your agency just now," she said, each word crisp like ice cracking underfoot. "Your boss had no idea we knew. He started with his usual pitch, passion, hustle, holiday spirit, and then our CEO cut in." "What did he say?" Jess exhaled. "He said, Your employee was in a hospice, volunteering with terminal children, while you demanded she repaint a button that was never requested, using our name. You've got 10 seconds to explain." My throat tightened. Aspen froze, she said. Tried to pivot. Said there was confusion, miscommunication. Said he misread the urgency. And our CEO asked, "Do you consider falsifying a client request and threatening an employee with termination on Christmas Eve a communication issue or a legal one?" I didn't breathe. Jess laughed. It wasn't joyful, more like a blade being unsheathed. "We gave him 30 seconds to resign. He didn't take it. So what now?" "We're terminating the agency," she said, "for cause. No severance, no PR cover, and we're issuing a formal complaint with your board." Silence. Then she added, "But that's not all." I sat up straighter. "I also told our CEO something else, that you recorded everything legally, because your company's own disclaimer says calls and messages may be recorded for compliance purposes." "That's true," I said. "It's on every onboarding doc." "And we're backing you up," she said. "If they try to bury you, we're prepared to go public. You're protected." The word felt foreign in my mouth. Protected. I whispered, "Thank you." Jess wasn't done. "We're sending a representative to your agency's board meeting. They scheduled an emergency session for tomorrow morning." "Because of this? Because of you?" She paused. "One more thing," she said, tone shifting. "Send me last night's voicemails too, even the angry ones, especially the angry ones." "Why?" "Because this isn't about a button. It never was. This is about making sure no one ever weaponizes Christmas again." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I'll send them." When she hung up, I just sat there for a minute. No music, no Slack, no fear. Just me. The cold breath of winter pressing against the glass, and the quiet realization that the story had shifted. Aspen had made a mistake. He'd gone too far, and he'd done it to someone with nothing left to lose. I opened my voicemail app. There they were, 6 messages from the night before, each one meaner than the last. The first, slurred and smug. The last, pure venom. I labeled them Aspen, Toxic Tosh 1 Tier 6. Wave. Then I opened a new folder. Title, Operation, Evergreen. Because some things, dignity, truth, time with dying children, are sacred. And I was done letting people like Aspen trample them. 9 a.m. sharp, the agency-wide all-hands call blinked to life. My name was one of 79 logged in, just a dot in a sea of muted microphones and holiday Zoom backgrounds. Someone had a dog in a Santa hat. Someone else was already sipping mimosa. The screen grid looked like a holiday card no one really wanted to send. Then Aspen's square popped up. Reindeer sweater, slick hair, forced cheer. "Good morning, Neon family," he said, flashing teeth like he owned December. "Hope you all had restful breaks or are about to." He winked. "Some of us are still grinding." I muted my laugh. "Before we get to metrics and roadmap stuff," he continued, "I want to shout out some major hustle from our creative team over the holiday, especially—" He smiled like he just bit into raw meat. "Our own late-night MVP." He said my name. Camera on. I blinked into the screen, jaw set. "Morning," I said, voice even. "Before you go further, I'd like to share something with the team." Aspen's face didn't flinch, yet. Sure, of course." I shared my screen. Silence dropped like an elevator. The waveform appeared, a simple black squiggle on gray. I clicked play. Aspen's voice filled the call. "Open the laptop and shut up. You're expendable. Your job is to prop up my back." No music, no edits, just his own words, broadcast to 79 witnesses. Gasps broke the silence. Someone coughed. Someone else unmuted by accident, just enough to hear "holy shit" in the background. I didn't stop. The next audio clip played. A second voicemail from the 11:24 p.m., Christmas Eve. "You think being in a hospital excuses ghosting your superior? I own your calendar. You disappear again, I disappear your job." Aspen's smile didn't just slip. It vanished. I stopped the audio, let the silence breathe. Then I spoke. "I volunteered at a children's hospice on Christmas Eve," I said. "I had already completed the project Aspen claims was urgent, weeks ago. The client never requested a rush. The deadline was invented. And when I didn't perform, I was threatened." Still, Aspen didn't speak, because that wasn't the end. A new participant joined the call. Unannounced, uninvited. Her name appeared at the bottom of the grid. Jess N., CMO, Lantera Group. Aspen flinched. Jess turned on her camera, professional, unapologetic. "Good morning," she said coolly. "I've just come from our CEO. Lantera did not request any holiday deliverables. In fact, we issued a formal pause weeks ago. What your employee just shared is not a misunderstanding. It's a documented abuse of our brand, our name, and your people." Dead silence. "I've sent your board an official termination letter," Jess continued. "Effective immediately. Aspen Teller's use of our name to coerce unpaid labor, especially involving a hospice visit, violates your MSA and breaches ethical compliance." Someone in finance unmuted, then quickly muted again. Aspen finally spoke. There's context," he stammered, voice cracking. She misunderstood. "You meant to lie," Jess cut in. "You meant to polish your ego with someone else's exhaustion. And now you've cost your agency a multi-million-dollar account." I watched his eyes twitch. The way he sat forward, scrambling to regain narrative. The reindeer sweater clinging to him like a joke that landed wrong. My voice was quiet when I spoke again. "I've submitted all documentation to compliance. Voicemails, Slack threads, calendar forgeries, metadata logs. The call recordings were made with full notice, per your onboarding policy." The legal rep finally unmuted. "We've received the files," she said. "A full investigation is underway." Aspen's face locked. I clicked end screen share. Let the call grid return to normal, or what passed for normal now. "Thanks for your time," I said. Then I did something that was mine. I turned off my camera, muted my mic, and leaned back. I didn't need to see the rest. The dominoes had already started to fall. As I sat in the quiet of my apartment, fingers still buzzing, one final ping hit my inbox. From legal. Subject: Additional records request. Please forward the Slack message where Aspen instructs someone to drag her out of the hospital. We'd like that exact quote for HR escalation. I opened Slack, searched. There it was. Just keep pressing. Christmas isn't a reason. Drag her out of her hospital if you must. I copied it, attached it, sent. No edits, no mercy, just the truth sharpened. Aspen was still clinging to the wreckage when the next wave hit. The Slack thread had barely cooled when the agency-wide calendar updated with a new event. Emergency client retention call, 12:30 p.m., mandatory, 30 minutes long. One agenda item, Lantera. I clicked the invite. It was real, legal, HR, exec, and Jess. The video window opened with less cheer this time. No backgrounds, no reindeer sweaters. Aspen was there, yes, but smaller now. Pale. Sweating under studio lights he couldn't turn off. The CEO of our agency joined. Tie crooked, jaw locked. This wasn't going to be damage control. This was going to be a funeral. "Thank you all for joining," he said tightly. "We're here at Lantera's request to hear their formal feedback." Jess's video came on next. Not the hoodie-wearing mom from hospice. Not even the no-nonsense CMO from the all hands. This was battlefield Jess. Blazer, glossed lips, tone set to cut glass. "We appreciate the time," she said, "but I'll keep it brief. Lantera is terminating the contract, effective immediately, and we're taking the project elsewhere." A beat of silence. Then the agency's CEO cleared his throat. "I'd like to at least understand that—" "You already do," Jess said. "Your employee was coerced into working a fabricated holiday deadline, threatened, and harassed. Your executive forged urgency in our name to pressure unpaid labor. And worst of all, he did it while she was fulfilling a volunteer commitment in a hospice." Aspen unmuted, panicked. "It wasn't unpaid. She's salaried. That's how creative works." Wrong answer. Jess's tone turned arctic. "Salaried is not consent for abuse, and we don't tolerate partners who mistake power for permission." He tried again. "Let's not blow this out of proportion. It was a late push, a bad call, sure, but we can recover. I've apologized." Jess leaned forward, voice lowering. "You used dying children as a prop. That's not a bad call, that's rot." Someone audibly exhaled. HR, maybe. Or finance. Didn't matter. Jess wasn't done. "We're also adding a clause to our new agency contracts," she said. "Effective immediately." She held up a single page to the camera. "Holiday blackout policy. Any deliverables scheduled between December 22nd, January 2nd must be pre-approved in writing with a 200% surcharge. Forced holiday labor without client request results in full fee forfeiture and reputational disclosure." The CEO blinked. That's the price of trust," Jess said. Then she looked right at me. "And one more thing," she added. "We're not just moving the project. We're moving it under her leadership. She owns the roadmap now. Our CEO signed off this morning." The air left the room. No one objected. No one dared. My hands stayed folded in my lap, even as my pulse sprinted. Aspen looked like someone had vacuumed the air out of his lungs. His voice, when it came, was a whisper through gritted teeth. "She's junior. She doesn't have title clearance." "She has moral clearance," Jess shot back. "And that's more than you've ever earned." The CEO nodded slowly. "We'll cooperate fully and review internal conduct." Too late. Jess ended the call. The agency feed held for another moment, like it couldn't believe what it had just seen. Then it blinked out, black. I sat back in my chair. Didn't smile. Didn't cry. I just stared at the Slack message still pinned on my screen. "Drag her out of her hospital if you must." I highlighted it, copied it, pasted it into a folder labeled Client Abuse Record, Public Ready. I wasn't planning to leak it. Yet. But I wanted it ready. Not out of vengeance. Out of principle. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every urgent request at 11 p.m. Every client ask that didn't exist. Every "you're lucky to have a job" email dressed up like feedback. Aspen hadn't just gotten caught. He'd given us the blueprint, and I planned to use it. By noon, Aspen was trying to claw his way back behind the curtain. He started small, direct messages from his personal Slack account, not the company one, the alt he used for off-the-record praise or pressure, depending on the day. I saw the notification blink and let it sit. I knew what it was before I opened it. Aspen, personal. "You'll regret this." Regret. The word rolled around my mouth like a stone too dull to cut, but too heavy to swallow. I typed back, slow and clean. Regret requires doubt. I didn't hear from him again. Legal wasn't slow. At 1:17 p.m., I got the formal notice. Subject, compliance review, conduct allegations under investigation body. Please be advised that your recent documentation has triggered a conduct review into Aspen Teller's professional behavior, including coercion, policy violation, and reputational damage. They froze his laptop access, revoked his badge for the building. HR added a digital lock to his company email. He was still technically employed, but only in the way a haunted house still technically has electricity. That afternoon, a new channel appeared in our Slack. Investigations Incident 1225. I was added automatically. So was legal. So was HR. Aspen wasn't. The first pinned item was a shared drive folder. 01 evidence, 02 witness accounts, 03 Slack logs, drag her. Quote. They weren't playing around. An HR rep reached out privately, asked if I had additional context. I sent over the Slack chat, where he told Mia, Christmas isn't a reason. Just keep pressing. Drag her out of her hospital if you must. I highlighted it, annotated it, made sure they understood. This wasn't a line taken out of context. This was the context. Next, I sent over Aspen's voicemail from 1224, where he said, Your job is to make me look good. You don't get to hide behind dying kids. No edits, no emotion, just the raw truth. The HR manager replied 1 minute later. Received. Forwarding to legal counsel and executive review board. Next update will follow internal protocol. Translation. Aspen was on borrowed time. What struck me most wasn't the speed. It was the silence. No one from creative said anything publicly. No one from strategy asked questions. But one by one, DMs started coming in. Mia. I should have spoken up. I'm sorry. Thank you for doing it. Carla from copy. He made me work through my mom's chemo once. I wish I'd had the receipts you did. Even someone from payroll, a guy I'd never met. He used to delay bonuses to motivate morale. That clip of him saying you were expendable? We played it on repeat in the break room. By 4:45 p.m., HR posted the next update. Due to multiple confirmed violations of employee dignity policies, the subject under investigation has been suspended pending board decision. I read that twice. Then one last Slack message lit up. From a name I didn't expect. CFO, Diana M. For what it's worth, your documentation is one of the cleanest escalation trails I've seen in years. You didn't just report abuse, you documented it, time-stamped it, and showed restraint. That's rare. I stared at that message for a long time, because I hadn't felt restrained. I'd felt wrecked. I'd cried in a dark kitchen alone while deciding if I should hit record. I doubted myself after every upload, after every file I named with shaking hands. But restraint isn't about calm. It's about discipline. And discipline, ironically, is something Aspen never had. That night, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a New Year's that never came. I drank one glass. Just one. Then I sat down and added the final piece to the folder. A letter, addressed to HR. Signed, dated. Subject, pattern of abuse. Recommendation for termination body. The attached materials represent a sustained pattern of coercion, falsification, verbal threats, and abuse of authority. If Aspen Teller is retained, I will resign effective immediately, and I will make every recording public. Then I uploaded the last audio file, the one I hadn't shared. December 23rd, 8:41 p.m. Aspen, on speaker, after I told him I couldn't join his client call from the hospice. This whole sad kid martyr act is bullshit. Either you're loyal to the agency or you're out. I attached it, hit send, closed the laptop, and waited. The boardroom wasn't on Zoom. It wasn't Slack. Not even a Teams pop-up with polite audio lag and backlit executives in curated home offices. This was in person, downtown, glass walls and air that smelled like filtered power. I wasn't supposed to be there, But I was asked, quietly, carefully, by legal, after the final file I submitted landed hard on the executive floor. "Would you be willing to walk us through the evidence?" the VP of Compliance had asked. "In person, to the board." I said yes, not for revenge, for record. By 9:58 a.m., I stood in a room lined with 12 chairs, each filled by someone who made more in a quarter than I'd make in 5 years. The walls were clean, white, sterile. A bottle of still water had already been placed at my seat. No one had said anything about a snack. The chairwoman sat at the head of the table. Black suit. No jewelry. Expression set like a courtroom verdict. "Let's begin," she said, without looking up. I took out my drive, plugged it in. What I showed them wasn't emotional. I didn't talk about burnout or unfair deadlines or toxic culture. I showed them Slack logs, timestamps, audio clips with legal disclaimers playing in the background. The fake calendar invite Aspen had forged with the client's name in the title, "Urgent CTA Request, Lantera," time-stamped after the client had already paused the campaign. I clicked through the evidence. I didn't editorialize, just narrated. This message was sent at 21:47. It followed a voicemail that said, "You're expendable. Here is that voicemail." I played it. Silence. I showed them the Slack DM. "Drag her out of her hospital if you must." Then the voice clip. "You don't get to hide behind dying kids." A few board members shifted in their seats. I looked at the chair. This wasn't miscommunication. It was orchestration. She finally looked at me. "Why did you record him?" "Because it wasn't the first time," I said. "It was just the first time I had proof." She nodded. Counsel leaned over and whispered something in her ear. She straightened. "Anything else?" I hesitated, then said, "Just this." I pulled up the Lantera policy proposal, holiday blackout clause, a new industry standard, one born directly from this mess. She read the bullet points. 200% penalty for unsanctioned holiday labor. Mandatory pause from December 22nd through January sound. Executive liability for forged urgency. One of the men at the far end let out a low whistle. "That'll ripple through the sector." "Good," I said. Then I closed the folder. "That's my presentation." I didn't sit back down. I left the drive on the table and walked out. An hour later, I got the message. Subject, decision finalized body, Aspen teller, terminated for cause. No severance, bonus clawback in process, NDA privilege revoked. I stared at the screen. Then I scrolled down. There was a footnote. Board recommendation, public apology to be issued to impacted employee at agency expense to client and internal staff. It was the closest thing I'd ever get to an institutional confession. At 2:13 p.m., I got a ping from facilities. "Aspen's office is being cleared. Anything in his inbox you need redirected?" I typed. "Just one thing. Forward any client messages from December 20th, 26. I want to make sure the only urgency wasn't his own ego." 10 minutes later, I received 3 emails, all clean, all polite, all passive. Nothing about a Christmas rush. Nothing about CTA redesigns. Just one line in a message from Lantera's brand manager that stood out. "Let's keep December quiet. No one needs stress this season." That was the line. That was the one that would have saved everything if Aspen had listened. Instead, he'd chosen noise. And now, all that was left was the echo of it being cut. It was the kind of event he would have headlined. The neon holiday gala, black tie, brushed gold invites, string quartet looping, "All I Want for Christmas Is You," with tragic elegance. Tables of hors d'oeuvres no one really ate. Backlit banners with Aspen's face on them, still not pulled. They hadn't gotten around to replacing the keynote slides. Or maybe they didn't dare. I wasn't going to go. I'd planned to stay home, but then the chair sent a direct calendar invite. Attendance appreciated. Front row? So I came. Not to watch the burn, to witness the silence. The ballroom ceiling sparkled with fake stars, a manufactured sky for executives to toast under. I took my seat near the front. A man from HR nodded. Jess, now clearly in command, was seated across the aisle, lips painted crimson, a glass of water in her hand like she was holding court. At exactly 7:03 p.m., the stage lights dimmed. The AV team moved into place. No one was introduced. No host stepped forward. Just a single frame on the massive screen. December 24th, 2147. Neon Creative HQ audio log begins. And then his voice. Open the laptop and shut up. You're expendable. Gasps cracked across the room like static. The screen faded into a hallway, snow outside the glass, the hospice wing, kids watching the film, my hands on the projector cart, a shot of the fake client calendar invite, time-stamped. Then, Slack screenshots. Christmas isn't a reason. Drag her out of her hospital if you must. Silence followed. A beat. Then the screen faded to white. Aspen Teller, terminated for cause. Below it, no severance. Bonuses revoked. Formal apology in progress. No applause. Not even a breath. A sponsor at the back stood up. Walked out. Another followed. The chair took the mic. We apologize for the delay in integrity, she said. But delay is not refusal. She turned to me. This began with one employee refusing to prioritize ego over ethics. We didn't listen then. We do now. She paused. Effective next quarter, all agency contracts will include the holiday blackout clause. Creative freedom does not require human cost. Then she stepped back. No fanfare. The lights came up, and Aspen, who had come anyway, seat in the back, maybe hoping for some last-minute redemption or a quiet look away, was now on his feet, not walking out, staring directly at me. His face was tight, red. But it wasn't shame. It was hatred, pure, powerless rage. He walked up the aisle, slow and deliberate, stopped just beside me, bent down low enough that only I could hear. You think you're clean now? He hissed. Without me, you're nothing. I built that ladder. You just climbed it. I looked at him, then past him. The screen was still up, white, blank, final. Without you, I said, voice steady. Nobody cries on Christmas. He didn't respond. Security waited at the stage stairs. Not dramatic, just ready. He walked. No protest, no exit speech. Just a man who'd thought his lies would live longer than his victims. And now, his legacy was a slideshow of cruelty and consequence. I stayed seated for another hour as conversations resumed around me. Half celebration, half wound care. I didn't join, didn't network. I just watched the banner crew quietly unpin his name from the branded signage, replace it with a blank. A man once proud enough to speak over hospice monitors had been silenced by his own recordings. That night, walking home, the city lights felt different. No brighter, just honest. The kind of glow that doesn't demand applause. Only presence. The snow didn't fall that morning. It settled. Soft. Slow. Not performative. Like the city itself had exhaled. I woke before my alarm. No Slack pings, no phantom emails. Just the hum of real peace. Aspen was gone. Not ghosted, excised. There was a difference. My inbox had changed overnight. I was copied on new chains. Introductions, transfer decks, legal notices confirming the termination. Lantera had re-signed under a new MSA with one explicit condition. I would lead the relaunch. Not as an act of charity, not as a gesture, but because I'd already led it, quietly, unpaid, when no one else dared. The agency had no idea what to do with me now. I wasn't demoted. I wasn't promoted. I was noted. A problem they could no longer ignore nor control. HR sent an invitation to discuss career pathing opportunities. Translation: We'd like to keep you. Please don't burn us next. But I didn't reply. Because I already had another offer. One Jess had hinted at weeks ago, now official. Senior strategist, Lantera internal creative, double my salary, full benefits, flexible remote. But the real kicker? A dignity clause. No employee may be penalized, criticized, or terminated for refusing unsanctioned holiday labor, coercive requests, or non-client-driven overtime. Violators are subject to triple damages clawback. It wasn't personal anymore. It was policy. I signed the paperwork that afternoon, quietly, no post, no champagne photo. I didn't owe anyone a performance, least of all the system that almost broke me. And then, on December 26th, I packed a different kind of bag. The same film drive, the same projector, a thermos of cocoa, and a small gift bag filled with hand-cut snowflakes made by the kids at Hospice Light. No rush, no deadline, no manager breathing behind my back. I arrived just before sunset. The hospice was calm. Holiday lights still up, flickering like the building had its own heartbeat. I was greeted with hugs. The nurse from before handed me a small card, glitter glued in block letters. You came back. I promised I would, I said. I set up the projector again. Same room, same film, same warmth. But this time, the encore had a new ending. A final scene I'd finished just 2 nights earlier. The snowflake from the beginning, older now, floated above a town glowing with color. It whispered down to a windowsill where a child waited, hands outstretched. The flake didn't vanish. It landed, and the child didn't cry. She smiled. The room was quiet after the last frame. A boy with a nasal tube gave me a thumbs up. A girl with fuzzy socks whispered, "That was better than Christmas." And for the first time in years, I believed it. Not because I'd won, but because I'd survived without becoming him. I stayed until the cocoa ran out, until the staff dimmed the lights, until the last child was tucked in, the projector warm in my hands like a heart still beating. On my way out, I looked back once. The room glowed, even in darkness. That night, I wrote my final log. We shipped Joy on our schedule and returned his heroism for a refund. Then I deleted the folder called Neon Crunch. I didn't need the receipts anymore. The system had already printed its own. And for once, no one cried on Christmas.